Everyone out there in the live stream, thank you so much for being here. Hey, Brian. Hey, Brandon.
Hey.
Hello.
You guys ready to do a podcast today?
Every day.
Every day. It's all podcasting all the time. Awesome. So let's kick this off. Hello and welcome to Python Bytes, where we deliver Python news and headlines directly to your earbuds. This is episode 244, recorded July 30th, 2021. I'm Michael Kennedy.
And I'm Brian Ocken.
And I'm Brandon Brainer.
Hey, Brandon. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really good to have you here. You're one of the first volunteers, I'll put it as, when I said, hey, we're looking for some folks to come be with Brian and me on the show and throw your name in the hat. And here you are. Happy to have you here.
It's very exciting. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we jump into the topics, just tell us a quick bit about yourself.
Yeah, so been in software development for 10 years, half of it in management, half of it as an individual contributor, about 7 years of it with Python. It's funny, when I first started programming, I looked at a Raspberry Pi. I thought Python is so confusing with not having brackets and all these spaces, and I don't understand it. And now I can't go back. It's so much easier.
Yeah. I had a similar experience coming from C# and C++ and stuff with all the symbols. And I thought, in my mind, those are necessary for programming. Like, you have to have the semicolons, you have to have the curly braces and the extra parentheses, because how else will the parser and everything? Like, that's how you express stuff in programming. And then when I got into Python, I felt a little bit weird with it missing. But then when I went back, I felt even weirder. Like, why are all these symbols here?
Yep. I
just learned that they're not necessary. Why have I been doing this the last 10 years of my life? What is wrong with me?
Exactly.
It was a real interesting experience.
Yeah.
Speaking of interesting, Brian, all the stuff on pip, quite interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. We're doing this on Friday because I wasn't here on Wednesday. I was in Florida. And so
because you're a jet setter, basically. You just
you
never know what's going to happen.
Traveled in like 2 years for a business.
Was it weird? Yeah, was it weird?
No, it's like wearing a mask all the way there. I kind of got used to no masks here in Oregon, but then now I guess they're changing all that again, and we're bringing them back. But what's old is new again. But one of the things I tried to do is I tried to work on the plane, and in Python, of course. So the problem with snakes on a plane is there's no internet. So I had this issue. I had and I've already put it up on the screen, the solution. But so my issue was I had a project I wanted to work on. It's got Tox set up, and when you run Tox creates for virtual environments, and then fills those up with all your dependencies in your code using pip. Pip goes out to PyPI to get that stuff. I mean, you can cache it, and that does help, and you do that locally on your machine, but it still looks out at the internet. And this won't work on a plane. So I reached out to the Twitterverse, and I thought I found a solution, but I'm not even going to say the wrong solution. Paul Gansel pointed me in the direction of environmental variables in pip. You can just set find links to a local directory, and then set with pip find links and then pip no index, so that the pip doesn't even look out there. It looks at a local directory. So what I did is I'm gonna guess we'll look at. I was surprised.
Wait, go back. I got a quick question before we go on.
Okay.
So it'll look in that local directory for the packages, the wheels, and whatnot.
Yeah.
How do you get them there in the first place?
Okay, so I got some pre-work that I did. So I'm like, okay, how do I get those? And normally when I want to put something in a local directory or something, I'll just use was it pip download? You can do that, but that's a lot of work to try to figure out what you did. So what I did is before I got on the plane, I'm using the airport internet. Which everybody can harass me later about how that's not secure. It's fine. But I ran Tox. You do it at home then if you want. Run Tox with an internet connection, and what it's going to do is you're going to have a whole bunch of your environments within Tox. You're going to have all Python 7, Python 8, whatever you got in there, or not 8, 3.8, 3.7, 3.10, whatever.
You're living in the future.
Just go through all of them. Just do a search and grab all of the what do we got? The site packages directories. Grab everything out of all of those and copy them to like a local wheels directory or something outside of your work environment. I just stuck it at the top level, like users Aachen or something. I stuck it up there, and then you can then that's everything, because you ran it, and then go ahead and set up these environmental variables. I actually just stuck the environmental variables in my just in a little script to set them while I'm developing.
Yeah, you know what I learned that was pretty interesting, that the activate script for a virtual environment, you can put environment variables in there. So you could have like a offline virtual environment and an online virtual environment, and those could toggle different environment, and just which one you activate will just make this happen. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So that's one of those like it's all virtual environments all the way down. And the environments are these environmental variables have to be set in the environment that you're running it in. So they can be set in the virtual environment that you were using to run talks, even though talks will generate others. It works right. I don't know how it works, but it works. Anyway, this super helped me out. And then when I went to, so then grab all those, throw them in there, and then use the find links and no index, and it'll just work great. The reason why I think I didn't find it at first is the note within the pip documentation just says everything that's a flag within pip is also an environmental variable. So if you searched for it, you probably won't find it. It just has this comment that says all command line options can be set as environmental variables using all uppercase, and then underscores instead of dashes. So.
Oh, that's a cool tip. Yeah, very. Yeah, Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, at first I was confused a little bit about why you wouldn't just pip install before you got on the plane, but I've never actually used Tox to do any testing. So it sounds like that installs in a different directory. So when you do your Tox runs, that it needs to reinstall them.
Yeah, it creates new virtual environment. You can tell it, you can run it ahead of time, and you can tell it to not install those. But I was messing with my environments, so I really wanted to make sure I could clean them out. So you can, I think this is, there's probably other cool solutions, but this is what I used. It creates all the virtual environments. So each different, like 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, 3.10, they'll all be different virtual environments that it runs your tests in.
Interesting.
So
it's always one of those things now. We depend so much on the internet to do our job that when you don't have it, it's like, what do I do? So that's interesting.
Yeah. And that's like, 20 hours of work I would have lost if I so anyway.
Yeah, this is very cool. A nice tip, especially the environment variables just for pip. Like you can change the verbosity or the mirrors or all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
All right. So this time I have an extra, how many extras? Let's see. I have 8 extras, extra, 6 times extra. Hear all about it. They'll all be kind of quick, but they're all kind of interesting. So I just want to give a quick shout out to V Brown Bag. I did a talk over there on Pydantic. So a 45-minute presentation on Pydantic and how you can do all sorts of cool stuff with that. Like we've already talked about why Pydantic is excellent. So very, very neat. People can check that out. And I also want to give a shout out to an episode that I did that I think is on Talk Python that I think is going to be really useful for people. It's about building little automation tools. Like instead of trying to build big apps, like maybe a little app with rumps that runs up in your menu, or a little app that you can do a bunch of stuff and it'll generate like a query for some other platform that's not like SQL, but think SQL like type of things and so on. So I had a bunch of cool guests. I had Rusty Gregory, Kim Van Wyk, KJ Miller, and actually Rivers Cuomo from Weezer on the show. He's doing amazing stuff. So people should check that out if that sounds interesting and inspiring.
That sounds so cool. I can't wait to watch this.
Yeah, this is going to be one of my favorite Talk Python episodes in the near term, I'm pretty sure. Okay, enough of my stuff. On to the 6 other things that we haven't done. Remember we had Shari Eskenes on the show a while back?
Yeah.
That was really fun. She talked about a bunch of great things, but she also did a day in the code Python, like Storybook for kids. So her Storybook for kids, which I know you and I both got a copy, right, Brian?
Yeah, and it's actually pretty cool. Yeah, like it.
Yeah, it's cool. So think like a big, large picture book that tells a story, but about programming for kids rather than, I don't know, like a day in the park or whatever. So that book's actually out. I just want to, that'll be a link in the show notes. If you heard that episode and you want to check it out, could actually get the book now. So we talked about GitHub Copilot and some other things like that. I want to give a shout out to another tool that's kind of like this, but way more tamed down. And it plugs into all sorts of different IDEs called Tabnine. Have we talked about Tabnine? I don't think I have either. But it's actually really well developed. It's got a ton of different platforms. Like, for example, if you go over here and check it out, it's like, well, what do you want? VS Code, you want PyCharm, you want WebStorm, you want Atom, you want Emacs, you want RubyMind, you want Jupyter.
Vim. Straight
Vim.
Awesome.
Vim. Yeah. And so this is a tool that you plug into your editor. Let me pull up Python. That's offensive to have JavaScript. Excuse me. So you can come down here and it will help basically look at your code, look at the keyword arguments, and instead of just giving you autocomplete for the symbols, like the functions and fields and stuff, it tries to kind of bring it together. It's not GitHub Copilot in the sense that it's trying to pull other people's code and inject large. It's not like Stack Overflow copy and paste with a tab type of thing. It's looking at what's on your screen and trying to pull it together to like complete a little bit more. So if you have like a username equals quote Brian, and then you call a function that takes a username, it'll suggest you pass in like that variable value and so on. What do you think?
Actually, I definitely want to try this. I think this having a smarter code complete, that sounds just like about the right level that I want to try first. So
yeah, Brandon.
Yeah. I actually had this and GitHub Copilot on at the same time.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
It's a disaster. But yeah, I like this because as much as I like VS Code, I'm a JetBrains fan, and the fact that you can't use it in PyCharm or anything else like that is very disappointing. So
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Well, I think I want to get like 5 AI coding systems together, and they can just mob program by themselves.
Exactly. So when I look at this stuff, one of the first things I think, okay, it's using AI. It's like I said, it's taking the stuff out of my code and then applying the AI to that. Does that mean my code is being passed to somewhere that I don't want my code to be? And so somewhere, yeah, here you go. It says your code is yours and yours alone. It runs locally without sending any source code anywhere. You can even work on a plane, Brian. So anyway, I ran across this. I was talking to the folks from there and I thought, this is pretty cool. I'll give a quick shout out to that because, it's the AI coding assistants are all the rage right now.
Is this a paid thing or a free thing?
Yeah, it costs money, but there is a free version. So you get like what they call basic completion and some
bad suggestions for free.
Yeah, exactly. Like it'll put like every 10th is a bug, but the other 9 are really good. No, I'm just joking about that. I don't know. But there's a free one and then you can pay for more. Brandon, did you do the paid one? Do you know the difference?
No, I just use the free one. I assume that there's probably, like you said, better models, and I think there's like a limit to the amount you can do with the free one. So it just stops working. You actually have to do the work yourself.
Yeah.
To be fair, it doesn't look expensive. So
no, it's reasonably priced.
Yeah. It's $12 a month for the paid version. I always feel like when people are like, oh, well, I'm not going to pay, $10 for this thing. It's like, this is your job all day. How much do you actually make from this job? Like if this could, save you an hour, surely. Right? Anyway, it's a different discussion. Speaking of discussions, following up on one of our episodes with Simon Willison, who talked about Apple Photos and SQLite and using Dogsheep and Dataset to analyze it. Rhett Turnbull pointed out a project that he created that will says macOS photo pack. The OS X Photos Python package exposes all of your data to your Python apps, and the next release will provide the OCR stuff out of Apple's Vision framework. So if people have been tracking that, there's some really exciting stuff coming to the Apple Photo, iOS, etc., where if you take a picture of something, then it'll automatically do OCR, and you can actually select and copy the text out of, say, a sign in a picture and paste that somewhere. So that'll be stored in the database, and apparently this thing will give you access to that text.
Oh, that'd be cool. Can I get that in my car so that I can just have somebody else reading signs for me?
Exactly.
That'd be sweet.
Someday, perhaps. All right. So, Rhett, thank you for that. Whew, okay. The last 3 things. Really quickly, I released 3 packages to PyPI last week. 2 of them are related. They're around taking HTML and templates, either Jinja or Chameleon, 1 package for each language, and trying to reuse them in like really clean, simple ways. So if you've got like some fragment, say like the example I have on the site is a video app, and it's got like the thumbnail of a YouTube video, then the title of the author, and then the number of views. And if you want to show that all over the place, you could either copy that code and replicate it, or with this inside your template, you just say render template or render partial, and you point at some HTML fragment bit, and it'll apply your model to that sub thing, and allows you to basically create functions that return HTML inside of your templates.
That's neat.
So it's super, super simple. So like for the videos, you have like literally this little render partial, quote shared video square, and you pass the video over. Really, really nice. So there's a Jinja partials for Flask people, and there's a Chameleon partials that does exactly the same thing for Pyramid. And then last thing, adding the Chameleon template language to Fast API so you can build proper web apps. I published that. It's been around for a little while, but I finally published it to PyPI. So you just put a little decorator onto a Fast API function, and it becomes a HTML endpoint rather than a API endpoint.
Have you been using Chameleon longer? Is that why you're more comfortable with it?
No. I probably have been doing more Chameleon than Jinja, but I do a lot. But the thing that I really, really like about Chameleon, let's see if I can find an example. Here, this will probably be good enough. So what I really like about Chameleon is that it is valid HTML as it is. Whereas with Jinja and the Django framework and a bunch of other frameworks, Mako, and you go into other areas like Razor and ASP.NET, all of these are nice, but they all have HTML, blocks of code, HTML, block of code, HTML, right? This is all driven through attributes like views. So like here, if I want something that's a loop, I can just say tal::repeat as an attribute. Or if I want, things like that, right? Or you do condition, you say tal::conditional, and you put it in there. So this is actually 100% still valid HTML with just attributes that don't make sense. So to me, it just feels cleaner. That's why I like it better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Ooh, I kind of tore through all those. So without giving you all a lot of a chance to talk about them. But anyway, that's my extra A times.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cool. All right, Brandon, you're up next.
Yeah, so this is something I came across on Twitter, and I signed up to do it. So it's Kaggle's 30 Days of Machine Learning. Basically what it is, I guess if you don't know what Kaggle is, it's a place for data scientists to find and publish data sets. They have online Jupyter notebooks that allow you access to free GPUs and things like that to run your machine learning models on. You can collaborate with other data scientists and things like that. And, machine learning is one of those things that I've always kind of wanted to get into, but I've always been a little scared and not sure the 100% of the resources to go to. So I saw this 30 Days of Machine Learning, and what's nice is they give you an introduction into Python, the things you need to learn from Python to know how to do, machine learning. They show you how to, build models in their Jupyter notebooks. And yeah, so you go through that, you learn some basic and intermediate machine learning concepts. You get some certificates. So if you want to post those, like, with your resume or something like that, you can say, hey, I did some learning with Kaggle. And
I haven't done any of this, but I suspect that if you ranked pretty highly on Kaggle and then you put that on your LinkedIn profile, or you're trying to get a job, that speaks pretty well.
Yeah, I would think so. And I think the cool thing is, like, at the end of it, there's a competition that they have with it's like teams up to 3, and it's like for only people that ran through the course. So you're not competing against people who've been doing, machine learning for years, and kind of give you a little bit of that taste into what, machine learning competitions are like. So I think it'll be interesting. It'll be fun.
Are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. What I think is valuable here is the constraints, right? Here's your data that you're going to be working from. Here's the type of problem you're solving. And so often when you're a beginner, whether it's machine learning or web development or whatever, it's really hard to know what is the right sized problem to attack. Yeah. It's so easy to go, well, that's too small. That's not interesting. Or, oh, wait, all of a sudden I tried to build Instagram and I got stuck or whatever, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's nice, if they give you the data. Like, I think a lot of times the biggest part of machine learning and data science is cleaning the data and making sure you have the right data and the right attributes to look at. And hopefully, they walk you through how to, they should walk you through how to do that and kind of give you a taste of how to do that. So, I think it'll be a good learning experience.
I suspect this is free. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. It's free. Yep. All you need is a Kaggle account.
Yeah, and it starts August 2nd, which is like 4 days away. So. Yeah, don't hesitate. Get in there if you're going to be part of this.
This sounds neat. And actually, there's this, but even if somebody doesn't want to do this, Kaggle has a lot of learning opportunities for people that want to sort of learn the tools. It's an interesting resource for learning how to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, that's a great pick. Brian, you're next, right?
All right. Yeah. So been testing a lot. More testing. So one of the things I had a project that was set up to use Talks, but I also early on when GitHub Actions came about, I put it up on GitHub Actions too. But I was trying to understand the workflow a little more. At first there were a lot of resources, and then I came across this recently, just last week. Building and testing Python. It's part of the GitHub Actions guides, and it's actually pretty great. And it goes through a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it's around a set of docs that talks about Python, Ruby, Java, a whole bunch of other things. But within the Python space, it really is a full setup of how to run this yourself. The reason why I brought this up is I wanted to, hopefully people are using Talks. I love Talks. One of the reasons why I like it is because it's kind of like a CI system, but locally you can sort of run through making sure your installs work, your builds work, and all your extra tools that you've got hooked up.
Right. One of the problems is you just got your Python, whatever version 3.9, 3, whatever installed, and you run your test, it runs on that. But you want to kind of exhaustively go, I want to test on all the versions that I in theory support every time.
Yeah, or you might have an error in your pyproject.toml file or your setup.py, and you're not seeing that because you're not rebuilding it.
Right.
But Talks will do that. But so will CI systems, but it's kind of nice to have it set up both. But the directions here are how to it starts with directions on how to run PyTest and to install dependencies and build and lint and run PyTest on your project. But if you already have Talks set up, this is sort of a duplicate effort. But I think you want to jump down to the Talks section of this document, because it shows you just how to run Talks directly, and it's a smaller setup. And essentially what GitHub Actions is doing is setting up a Python environment and then installing Talks and running your Talks environments. And so you're having that same code from your Talks ini file running within GitHub Actions. And it's
I like it because it's going to try to do the same thing locally as it will in CI.
Yeah. The one change I want to mention to flag out, and we'll have this in the show notes, as I've modified this example because hopefully it didn't make sense to me at first. The example they show is on push, so when you push to a branch, it'll run these actions. But you also want to set up a pull request. So just add pull_request right next to push, and then so when people do pull requests to your project, it'll run your Talks also. And then also if you want to try to run 310, and hopefully you are right now because 310 is just around the corner, add 310-dev into the Python list.
Oh, -dev, interesting. That'll run the RC, huh?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's the RC or I think you can do RCs also, but dev is, I think, close enough, and you don't have to muck with it all the time. So.
Is that like the latest build of 310 or something?
I think so. I think it's just the latest 310 build. And then at the bottom, there's like this thing that talks e-py, and that -e usually means run the environment, run a specific one, but I don't set up the one that just says py. I usually say py 3.7 or py 3.8. but I got some help also on Twitter to understand this. What that does is it just will pick the one that's valid, and I tried it out and it works. If you do this code, it'll run the correct one. So
very nice, very nice. In the live stream, we have Felix. Hey, Felix says, I love Talks 2, using it for my strong typing package, and it's awesome. And welcome, Felix. Yeah, we covered your strong typing package a few weeks ago. That's really good.
Yeah. Oh, and then Oli says the machine language course sounds good. So thanks, Oli.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, Brian, you spoke about the stuff on the plane, and I've got an alternative solution for you.
Okay.
This is really interesting. This one comes from Patrick Park, this recommendation, and it's called Python-Vendorize. So vendoring a dependency in Python means instead of linking to the package you get from pip, you just go, I'm going to find that code and just jam it into my project and just copy it over, right? Which it's a bit of a hassle because then you've got to like keep syncing it and stuff. But for small things like, sys, unsync, like things that are one file or they're just pure Python and they don't have many dependencies, it might just make sense if there were an easy way to just make that like a subdirectory, submodule of your package. Then when somebody runs your code, they don't have to pip install anything, no virtual environments, nothing, right? And so with this Python Vendorize, that's what you can do for pure Python packages. So the idea is if you've got some code that has, lightweight dependencies, I don't know if I do this with something like Flask that depends on Vixoid, that depends on who knows what, right click and so on. Like I wouldn't necessarily go too deep, but for things that are smallish, what you can do is you can set up a vendorize.toml file, and then in here just list the packages. And you give it a location. You say, I wanted it to go from my project into _vendor in this example, but that could be whatever. And then you just run Vendorize, Python-Vendorize in the working directory where that toml file is. And what it'll do is it'll actually copy the package details over for that project. And then in your code, you just say from _vendor import package name, sys, requests, whatever.
Interesting.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you've got a program or a package really that has effectively 0 dependencies, even though you're still using some of these third-party libraries.
Do you know if it'll re-download if you run this again? Will it re-download them, or do you know?
I don't know for sure, and I didn't see anything in the documentation one way or the other. Okay. It is honestly a little sparse on documentation.
This is an interesting idea, and actually, and it often this does happen whether people like it or not, and it's completely legitimate according to a lot of the licensing, right?
Yeah.
But for commercial projects, this is very common. That I don't want to go out and pull things from pip all the time. I want to just have things local so that they're just built locally.
Right. And it might not be for just to avoid the pip install. It might be that you want extreme control over what's shipped, and you don't want something that might happen to that package coming down through pip and breaking your code. Even if you pin it, you might want to just have more control over it.
Right. Or a decision that somebody takes the project in a completely different direction that you don't want. It's like this is a very hard fork sometimes. So
yeah, I suspect rerunning Python-Vendorize will re-download it, but I don't know for sure. Brandon, go ahead.
Can you pin versions in this?
Good question.
It looks like the packages in the vendorize.toml, it doesn't say that you can do versions, but I would be guessing, just guessing here, I'm thinking that you could probably pin them, but
yeah, I'm just guessing that it passes whatever that string is over to pip, and
yeah.
So
yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. So probably you can.
We'll have to try it out. Somebody can tell us if we're wrong.
Felix is right there with you, Brandon, asking, do you know if we can specify a version? I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't say in the docs about it, but yeah, it's a small project, but I think it's an interesting idea, and it could be, if you just have these real simple dependencies and you're like, geez, we're going to have to create environments and have all these complicated instructions because of, a few little files, like just Here's a nice way to do that. Obviously, you can do it yourself, right? But here's a more repeatable type of way.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Brandon, take us out. What's your last one?
So there's a newer project out there called Superbase. I feel really weird saying the name Superbase.
You got to say it with an attitude.
It sounds like a car audio product. I'm gonna go put a Superbase in my car. But basically, what it
when your code's doing a query, it's like doom, 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 doom.
But yeah, so they tout themselves as an open source Firebase alternative. So if you've ever done a lot of JavaScript or been friends with JavaScript developers, a lot of people use Firebase because it provides authentication. I believe they're more of a NoSQL database, real-time updates. So if you subscribe to database changes, your app will change based on if something changes. So what Superbase is doing is something kind of similar, but they are running basically a Postgres database for you, and then they've got different open source projects that are wrapping it. So they have the authentication part, which they had to have a wrap around the GoTrue library from Netlify for handling authentication. So if you want to have authentication for your app, you can easily do first name or email password. Just email that sends an authentication link to the email. They have an extensive list of OAuth 2 providers. So if you want to add auth to they handle all that for you.
So the main idea of this database is kind of like, I want to have a front-end JavaScript framework, maybe hosted on the back end by Python, but then I just wanted to have a database access over an API, just like the entire CRUD story, right? Yep. And all of a sudden you run into all these challenges of offline, of authentication and stuff. And that's what this is mostly focused on, right?
Yeah. So they have a package they call it, where anybody can use it, called Postgres. I can't say it. It's a wraparound Postgres that basically gives you an API to your Postgres database that you don't have to write. Gotcha. And they implement that in a way that you can just, like you said, make those HTTP calls to write, read, to basically do your CRUD operations to your database. And what's nice is whenever you update your database, they automatically generate the API documentation for you. So you're not writing any controllers, any services, or anything to do that. It's just provided by them. And like you said, it looks like definitely a JavaScript thing, but they're actually just released a Python library for it that you have up right now.
Superbase-py.
Yeah. So so your snake has base. Anyways, so it's currently, I believe, in alpha. So I wouldn't suggest using it in enterprise application, but it's definitely something to try play around with if you want a simple way to do authentication, access to a Postgres database. And what's nice too is they give you the Postgres database, but you don't actually have to access it through their terminal or their UI. You can connect to it through whatever you use for your database. And going along the no internet development, they also have a Superbase local that you can run locally, so you don't need internet to do your development. So if you lose power, you want to get on a plane or something, you can still do your work. So
yeah, this is super cool. And one of the things that's interesting here is the subscribing to the real-time changes, right? That's pretty unique, especially over a remote API. So if you've got some front end and you want everyone to see those changes, possibly, I guess you could even do this in like a Qt or a WX Python app, or gosh, even a terminal app. But you might even want to just say, I've got a fast API app and I'm going to fire up a WebSocket there, so all the clients just get the changes streamed down. So the changes stream to you, and then they kind of multiplex on out to all the people watching. That'd be neat.
Yeah, I was thinking something like that. I was curious if you set up an AWS Lambda, so where someone changes and you need to send out a notification email or something to get hooked up to that, and it would just kick that off for you. So things like that.
Yeah, that's a good find. I had not heard about Superbase, but it does look super. It looks really useful, actually. Do you know what the story is? So when I'm looking at over here, they talk about, okay, so here's how you specify your API endpoint at app.superbase.io. Is there, and it's in this open source thing, but there's probably some database as a service or something equivalent that I maybe sign up for or I pay for. Do you know what the story is around that? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, surely they are not running the database for the world for free. They gotta charge at least bandwidth.
Yeah,
or something,
so
right?
that's the interesting thing. So their pricing model is a little confusing. I feel like they've gotten some funding, and I don't know how they're going to plan to make money with, because the pricing that they have is like $25 a project a month, and that gives you unlimited API calls, real time functionality, 8 gigabytes of database space. I mean, I don't know who they're using for their database provider. I can't imagine they have a data center somewhere where they're running it, but
yeah, it's probably on top of some cloud somewhere.
Yeah,
they do have a $0 per month version.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice
cool.
to get your project up going. So,
yeah, very nice. Oh, that's an excellent one. All right, well, I think that's it for our 6 items. Brian, you got anything extra you want to throw out there for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, we had Simon Wilson on recently, and he just released a post about the baked data architecture pattern, and that's if you know what he's up to, this isn't surprising, but it's a nice write-up. Baked data is bundling a read-only copy of your data alongside the code for your application as part of the same deployment, and it's just an interesting and neat write-up, and it's good to go have a read.
Yeah, it says most dynamic sites keep their code and data separate. Code runs on the server and it's stored in like Postgres or Mongo. With baked data, the data is deployed as part of the application bundle. Interesting. Yeah. And then also on the live stream, Tim Pogue is doing real-time research for us. Thank you. It looks like you were able to do a pin similar to as you would with pip with the Python Vendorize. So yeah, awesome. Thanks. Appreciate that. Brandon, anything else you want to throw out for people while we're here?
No, not really. I guess maybe do a little bit of self-promotion if I could. I'm currently working on a side project called Released. It's at released.sh. Basically, what it is, it's working on a tool to automate release notes for companies. I've noticed a lot of places, when they have releases, they need to go out and like curate all these release notes and have somebody manually do this work that takes hours upon hours every release. So I'm going to try to automate that and make it easier for people.
Cool.
That looks like a great project and nice web design. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Tailwind CSS. If you haven't tried it, give it a shot.
I'm hearing good things about Tailwind. I'm hearing so many good things. Must learn. All right. Speaking of must learn, one must be cautious when learning, it turns out, because if we study the circle of AI life, there's this great cartoon here on devhumor.com. So there's the circle of AI life, and it's got these little pictures of how humanity progresses. So there's 2 humans sitting here analyzing a neural network. It says human researches AI, and then they're like celebrating near a quantum computer. Humanity perfects AI. Then AI perfects itself with lots of lightning. AI enslaves humanity. There's pyramids. A solar flare disables the AI. And then there's humans worshiping a sun god. Humanity worships the sun god. And we start over. So there's our joke for the week.
It's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's a warning. It's humorous and ominous all at the same time.
The singularity is coming.
It is.
Anyway,
awesome.
Thanks, Brandon, for coming on the show. It was fun.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great to have you here, Brandon and Brian. Good to chat with you all. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Bye.